You're listening to Pyro Media Network, setting brands ablaze since 2017. We are back with yet another episode of the Unusual Mavericks Podcast. Thank you so much for joining and tuning on in. I'm your host, Kwame, joined by the handsome, the bearded one, just Dominic. What is going on?
It feels like I just was talking to you and everybody out there. I am so happy everybody's enjoying this. We're having a wonderful time. I'm doing fantastic and excited about this episode.
Yes. Today we're going to be reviewing the Dead Boy Detectives uh, uh, Netflix series. If you guys have not watched it, go ahead and check it out before reviewing or before listening to this, because this is going to be filled with spoilers and all of that jazz. So, just so you guys know, on the last episode we reviewed the X-Men 97 episode 10, and we gave our commentary on the overall season. So we hope you enjoyed that one as well. We're going to head over from Marvel to DC today. And today we're going to be talking about the Dead Boy Detectives. And it is an American supernatural horror detective comedy drama television series developed by Steve Yockey, based on the DC comic characters of the same name by Neil Gaiman and Matt Wagner. The series stars George Rescue, Jaden Reverie, Cassius Nelson, Brianna Cuckoo, Ruth Kano, Yu Katamura, and Jen Lyon, and follows Charles Rowland and Edwin Payne, who decided not to enter the afterlife and instead stay on Earth to investigate crimes that involve the supernatural. Now, this show is on Netflix, so make sure you guys go ahead and check it out. It premiered on April 25th, 2024. And yeah, it had 8 episodes, and I enjoyed it, but we're going to go ahead and break them down. Let's start out with episode 1, shall we, Dominic? Let's get into it. The first episode is The Case of Crystal Palace, and that was directed by Lee Toland Krager. And written by Steve Yockey. And so in London, ghosts Edwin Payne and Charles Rowland successfully help a World War I era spirit move on his afterlife before hiding to evade death. The detectives are then hired to rescue a psychic medium named Crystal Palace from demonic possession, and they successfully exorcise the demon David. Crystal suffers from unexplained memory loss, and Charles offers to let her stay at the agency while she recovers. A poster of missing Girl Scout Becky Aspen is delivered to the agency, leading Edwin, Charles, and Crystal to Port Townsend, Washington. Crystal rents a room above the tongue and tail butcher shop uh, run by Jenny Green, and meets the building's other tenant, Nico Sasaki. Crystal learns of Edwin's origin, where he was killed in a botched ritual that summoned the spirit Saal. With the help of Crystal's psychic powers and information extracted from a local gray cat, they find that Becky is being held by a witch named Esther Finch, who is using Becky to maintain her own youth. Crystal lures Esther away while Edwin and Charles break into her house to find Becky, rescuing her from a hidden basement containing a massive snake. Not fooled by Crystal's ruse, Esther returns and overpowers Edwin and Charles, leading Crystal to use her powers to evade Esther's mind. There, she sees a vision of Esther and an unknown woman in an ocean of blood. To allow them to escape, Charles briefly possesses Esther before the witch retreats, telling the trio they do not know what they have started. Becky, with her memories of her captivity erased, is reunited with her parents. Meanwhile, Charles's possession of Esther notifies the Afterlife's Lost and Found department of the Dead Boy Detectives location. So, what were your thoughts of this first episode, Dominic?
I thought it was a pretty good adaptation from the comic books. This is a comic book. Dead Boy Detectives is something that was written not too long ago, in my opinion. They debuted in the Sandman issue 25, issue number 25 in April 1991. And then again in Sandman issue number Oh, sorry. Yeah, in issue number 25 again. So that their origin story in Sandman issue 25 is slightly different. They are 13-year-old boys and they were murdered by the same group of guys. I think it was like 70 years apart. So they kind of altered it a little bit where the guys who murdered Edwin, I believe, died and the ghost of those boys came back and murdered Charles. And so that is how their friendship kind of happened. And again, they were 13 years old, and then they didn't have a detective agency, but they had to learn and grow and gain so much knowledge. So I like the fact that they aged them up to, I think they're supposed to be 16. The introduction of what's her name? Crystal Waters, right?
Yeah, Crystal Palace, excuse me.
Palace, sorry, Crystal Palace. Her introduction originally was different as well. I believe she was somewhere around 13. And she didn't have any memory loss, no demonic possession, none of those things. But she was always the kind hearted, good person that was always seeking to help someone. So these are very different takes, actually, on all three of these characters. The witch, who I love the actress she played in Claws, she was hilarious in Claws.
Yes,
And I
that's
thought she
right.
did a bang up job as the witch in this particular series. That character was a man in the comic books, and he was based upon a real life European duke, I believe, who murdered lots of children, and they believe that in real life he was the first serial killer on record. So they kind of changed that character quite a bit to make her that character from a warlock to a witch and so on and so forth. But I thought she did an amazing job, and this episode really set the stage. Now, I will say, I do not like a whole lot of cussing in my stuff, and it's heavy. Okay, it is heavy, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. I actually liked it. I watched another or started watching another show called Lockwood and Co. On Netflix, and it gave me the same vibes. But what I really liked about
Yeah,
this episode is that, or this series rather, is that it was darker. Or I guess darker. I don't know. They were about the same darkness, but I really liked. I don't know. It just felt like it was 20 times better, in my personal opinion, than what Lockwood and Co. was going with. And I felt like they. One of the things that I like about DC is that when it comes to these type of shows, they don't stop. Like they're not like bound by like the Disney brand kind of thing where they have to like worry about the what about the children, kind of thing. And so we get a lot of stuff for adults sometimes, and so that's nice. We get a little bit more mature. They can go a little darker if they wanted to, and I like how they did that. I like how they continued to kind of go into that realm of where Sandman was going, because I really enjoy Sandman. I think Sandman is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite currently, DC series.
yeah.
Yeah, I like
Well,
how they
Neil
take that.
Gaiman, he is the writer creator of Dead Boy Detective series. A lot of people don't know that the comic books, he created the characters. So it's cool that he is the executive producer and showrunner of this live action series. He also was a part of Doom Patrol. For you all that enjoyed Doom Patrol, Neil Gaiman was a part of that. And he is also over and in charge of Sandman. And I believe he also created Sandman. So it's cool that he's able to bring his properties to life in this way. And he's doing most of the rewrites himself. So people can't even say that, oh, the original writer is the one who's doing these rewrites or adaptation for television. And he's doing an amazing job, just as you said, amazing job. Some differences in origin story, of course, but
Yeah.
still really, really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's head over to episode 2, which is the case of the Dandelion Shrine, directed by Glenn Winter, and written by Shoshana Asaki and Seech Manahar. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these names. I apologize. This was preparing to return to London. Edwin, Charles, and Crystal are confronted by the same cat that Edwin magically unleashed or leashed, and are taken to the Cat King to face retribution. Um, while offended by Edwin's use of a binding spell on one of his subjects, the Cat King is fascinated by him and cuffs Edwin with a bracelet imbued with a caging spell, preventing him from leaving Port Townsend. The Cat King Charles Edwin with charges Edwin, excuse me, with counting every cat in Port Townsend to remove the bracelet, while also hinting at his attraction to Edwin. Back at the apartment, Edwin accuses Crystal of wanting to play detective and reveals that he will be sent back to hell, separated from Charles if death catches them. Uh, Crystal encounters Nico, who emits a pink aura before collapsing, while the boys unsuccessfully visit Tragic Mix magic shop to see about removing the Cat King's bracelet. Esther overhears them and Edwin deduces that she is possessed by. I'm sorry. Esther overhears them and buys something from Tragic Mick that she calls a revenge starter kit. Um, Charles Charles mirror hops to the London office, looking for a book to help Nico, Edwin deduces that she is possessed by dandelion sprites. Her symptoms worsen, and the detectives visit the shrine where the sprites infested Nico. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because the sprites were hilarious, actually. There, they discover that the sprites can be contained by the shrine's enchanted vessel. But Charles accidentally breaks the vessel with the when disturbing the shrine, wakes past victims of the sprites. Um, Upon their return, Crystal tricks the sprites Kingdom and Liddy, offering her body in place of Nico's, only for Edwin to trap them in a jar. After recuperating from her near-death experience, Nico can see Edwin and Charles. Word of their success spreads, and the Deadwood detectives begins receiving clients from Port Townsend's ghost community. Meanwhile, Esther turns her crow familiar Monty into a young human, and the Afterlife's lost and found apartment's night nurse plans to find the detectives. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Oh wow, that was a mouthful.
I
It
know.
was it they set up a lot, I think, in episode two, which was really good. Miko is not a part of the original comic book storyline at all. She is a new character for sure. I love her. I thought that she was absolutely hilarious. I found the sprites to be very obnoxious and annoying, really hilarious to me. I was like, oh my God, please step on them and smash them like bugs. Uh, but of course, that sense of humor is consistent throughout these Neil Gaiman type of series. That was the humor with the Robot Man in Doom Patrol. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it was
Yes.
very reminiscent of Doom Patrol to me in that way. So yeah, this episode was very interesting. It set up a lot, and we got a chance to see them solve their first case. Plus, I just love the whole Scooby Doo feel of the two
Yeah.
guys and the two girls that they kind of set up with this episode. So I like these changes.
Yeah, I don't remember Nico. I started researching the comic book as well, and I don't remember Nico. Like you said, Nico was not a part of the original thing, so that was
No,
something that they added. And I'm not sure why they did that, but I don't hate Nico. I think Nico was really fun to have. She has an innocence about her.
hilarious.
Yeah, you know who she reminds me of? Do you remember the girl in Guardians of the Galaxy with the two? She can like she's like an empath. She can control
Yes.
emotions. She reminds me of her, and so I got that vibe from her, which was really really fun. Um, but Episode 3, let's scoot on over to episode 3 because I don't really have much. There was a lot going on in that episode. I do want to highlight though the Cat King and Edwin's
Oh, yes. Talk about it.
tension. Yeah, let's talk about that because one of the things that I like about DC is that they're not afraid to go there. And I don't know if it's because they don't have the Disney restriction, but uh, they were able to
That's
go there with.
right.
Yeah, right. And so they were able to go there with the Cat King and Edwin, and even Edwin and Charles. Like you can tell that like obviously Edwin is feeling something for Charles and has a vibe for him or whatever, and whatever. But I liked how they went there with that, and it's obvious that Edwin is gay, right? And so he, I don't know if he's ever mentioned it in the series, but it's just obvious that he's gay. So
In the comic
um
books, yes, it does come out later, doesn't come out right away, but yes.
yeah, yeah. So, well, I know in the comic books it does, but I'm saying it in terms of the show. I don't remember them he actually saying, "Yeah, I'm a homosexual." So, but yeah, but let's get into episode 3, the case of the Devlin House, directed by Cheryl Dunye and written by Ian Weinrich and Christy Laurie. The Dead Boy detectives take on a case from recently deceased Susan Kessler, whose sister Stacy and nieces Hope and Hannah were killed by their father, Brandon Devlin, 30 years prior. Um, by Brandon Devlin, 30 years prior. Excuse me. Esther visits the tongue and tail, and Crystal asks her about the gigantic bloody woman from Esther's memory. The witch reveals she was granted immortality by the goddess Lilith. Keep that a pin in that. As Edwin and Nico leave the library, they encounter Monty, who can see Edwin at the afterlife's lost and found department. The night nurse is denied passage to Earth as she does not have the boy's exact location. Wow, which was hilarious. With the Devlin house set to be demolished, the Edwin, Charles, and Crystal seek answers and are monitored by two cats. The three see Brandon confront his family about a letter before brutally murdering them with an axe and committing suicide. The ghosts are caught in a loop, reliving the murders again and again. Brandon discovered his older daughter was planning to leave the family for university, igniting the murder, suicide, and subsequent loop. Charles, remembering his own abusive father, is trapped in the loop when he tries to intervene. Edwin and Crystal find a secret room filled with surveillance monitors that Brandon had been using to spy on his family. They deduce that if they destroy the VHS recording of the murders, it will break the loop. Before they can, however, they are confronted by a misery wraith, and Crystal is contacted by David, who offers to help them fight off the wraith in exchange for re-inhabiting Crystal's body. Edwin successfully erases the VHS tape and drags Crystal out of her vision. With the time loop broken, Edwin, Charles, and Crystal flee to the house as death arrives and takes the family to the afterlife. Nico arrives, having wanted to help her new friends. The group encounters Monty outside the tongue and tail, and he flirts with Edwin. Ooh. The cats note that the Cat King won't be pleased, and Esther looks on with pleasure. Meanwhile, the night nurse meets the Devlin daughters in the afterlife's lost and found department, where they tell her of how they were saved by the dead boy detectives. She uses them to determine the boy's precise location. What were your thoughts on this episode?
Okay. First, I have to say the Cat King is hilarious to me.
Yes.
He is absolutely hilarious, playful, flirtatious, extremely horny, obviously. I think he kind of steals every scene. So I just have to say that the night nurse, let's get on her for a second. Really amazing casting. Never seen
Yes.
this woman before in my life. I don't remember her from any other project she's worked on, but really, really dialed into this character. You feel her seriousness. You also feel her humanity in a weird way, her frustration. I just really, really enjoyed these extra characters as well. This episode was really good. They're being stuck in the loop. I love time loop episodes. across any franchise. In fact, anytime I see a Star Trek episode and there's a time loop, those are usually my favorite episodes. So I was very pleased to see how they were going to do this time loop episode in the supernatural way. And it did not disappoint, not by any means. Really good.
Yeah, it was a really, 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 really good show. The person that played the night nurse is her name was Ruth Connell, and she was in like Supernatural and like the Winchesters and Doom Patrol. Also, she was
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
she
she
also
was on
played.
Doom Patrol.
She was in
Okay.
Doom Patrol. She played the night nurse in Doom Patrol, which was really really interesting. I'm sorry, no,
Oh,
she was in episode one. She was in one episode. Oh no, she wasn't in episode one. She was just in one episode. And she was in episode three of season three, and she played the night nurse, which was funny. But yeah,
I'll have to
so
take a look at that Doom Patrol episode because that's a link. It kind of links Doom Patrol to this universe as well.
exactly. So
Because
that's really
Lilith
cool.
did. Yeah, to
Yes.
see Lilith from Sandman, that was
Mhm.
very I was like, "Oh my god, was this our first cameo?" I think this was our first cameo
Yes.
from Sandman, or Death was the first cameo. I can't remember which one.
I think it was death. But
Death, yes, it
I
was
don't think we saw the
amazing.
full death though. Like it wasn't we didn't see
Yeah,
her.
it was just a mention, right.
Yeah.
It was a
So
mention in episode 1, but this was the first real full-blown cameo that we saw, and so I
correct.
thought, "Oh, wow, here we go."
Yeah. Yeah. So that was good. I like this episode because it showed we got a backstory to not Edwin, to Charles, which I really, really liked. And we saw his humanity. And what I like about Charles is that he is that undying loyal friend. He's that ride or die. And we
Yeah.
always saw him being trying to be the hero, always trying to protect Edwin and Crystal. But we never saw him get vulnerable. And so this was an episode where we saw him get vulnerable and I really enjoyed it. We also saw a chink in Crystal's armor too, where we saw like her Achilles heel, which was at the time David, who is this demon, which I
Oh
really, really, really,
god.
really yeah. David is so disgusting.
I
Um
think that the representation of him as the ex-boyfriend, how they represented him being a demon is just perfect because when
yeah,
I think of exes, I hate to say it, not every ex, but some exes, absolutely that is the
right.
case. We've had our Davids.
We've
Absolutely.
had our Davids, absolutely. So none that have stayed in my mind though, but I understand what that is. But yeah, so but Monty coming in too, which was really, really interesting too. And that kind of set the tone for like just seeing how like they were gonna push the boundary of adding in like, just gayness into it, which I thought that was really, really cool. So we saw like different types, and with the Cat King, Edward was just really,
It's
really popular.
it's cool and weird because technically he has a cat and a bird chasing him, and I'm
Right.
kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, this is kind of weird, if we think about it, but that's fine.
Right. I was
Yeah,
kinda like, we're
yeah,
really touching with bestiality right now in a
yeah.
weird way. I don't that's uncomfortable."
And we haven't really talked about Jenny the Butcher a lot, which we're going to be talking about her throughout the show. But she is
Oh, we're
the
gonna talk about her episode when
oh
we
yeah,
get there.
oh yeah. But she
That was
is
crazy.
insane. But we're gonna get there. Let's get to the fourth episode, and then we'll take a commercial break. But episode four, the case of the Lighthouse Leapers. This was directed by Andy Arm Armaganian. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. And it was written by Joshua Conkle and Kristen Lane Tucker. Crystal and Nico find Jenny, who we just talked about, has received letters from a secret admirer. The detectives are visited by the ghost of Dangfin, who informs them of people mysteriously leaping to their deaths. I love this episode from his lighthouse into the sea. At the lighthouse, Edwin is diverted by a visit from the Cat King, who makes advances in forms of both Monty and Charles before telling Edwin that he has yet to count all the cats. Nico learns of the legend of the washerwoman, and Crystal hears the voice of a woman nearly jumping to her death before Nico saves her. Edwin and Charles see a light moving beneath the waves. Searching the beach for answers, Nico finds a piece of sea glass that Edwin uses to summon the washerwoman. She tells the group a sea monster is responsible for the deaths, and cryptically tells them that they must tire it out to defeat it. She also tells Crystal that to regain her memories, she must look into when, quote, the ground moves and the bird cries, end quote. Tragic Mick supplies the detectives with a music box that could lull the sea monster Angie to sleep. The night nurse arrives at the tongue and tail and tortures Jenny to find Crystal before wiping Jenny's memory. That night, the group prepares to confront the monster with the music box, but they encounter the night nurse who declares her intent to take Edwin and Charles to the afterlife. When Charles resists and defends Edwin, she forces him to relive some of his worst memories, including his death. Enraged, Charles repeatedly strikes the night nurse and with the music box, forcing her off of the cliff, where she and the music box are swallowed by Angie. The others look on in horror. The next day, Nico sees Tragic Mick on the shores looking for a Red Sea glass, hoping the washerwoman might help him return to his true form of a walrus. Edwin and Nico watch Scooby Doo, Where Are You, on her computer while she reads her mother's letters, and next door, Charles and Crystal kiss. What were your thoughts on this one? Dominic?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I was muted. I thought this episode was really interesting because one of the actors in this series we haven't really talked about, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this guy. I thought that he was very interesting, and that is Michael Beach, who
Hmm.
plays Mick.
Hmm.
He has Michael Beach has been in a lot of different projects down through
Oh
the
yeah.
years. He's played in a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
He was Aquaman's father,
Yep.
actually, for those that saw Aquaman. I remember him
Oh,
from
no.
Soul Food. He was
He wasn't Aquaman's fight, he was, Manta's father.
oops, I misspoke. I'm looking
It's
at it and
okay.
then said the wrong thing. He played in Aquaman and he
Yes.
played Manta's father. His
Yes.
name was Jesse, I believe.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
also played Miles in Soul Food. Amazing movie,
Yes.
good scenes. He kind of stole every performance or part that he was in. So I was really happy to see him pick up 4 episodes in this Dead Boy detective series. And the way he plays the walrus is hilarious.
It
The way he
is.
talk- I just really like the way that he does what he does. So
Mhm.
this episode was really good. I was impressed with how they trapped the night nurse. I was really, uh, yeah, I don't know, feeling anxiety that thought, oh no, it's over, it's over. They're
Yeah.
in trouble. Might as well forget it. But it was just brilliantly and cleverly done.
Mhm.
This was a very clever episode.
Yeah, this is a very clever episode. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. I thought that this was a great like midway point because it really picked up. We started understanding, we started getting into Crystal and the background with her and her like, are we getting closer to getting her regaining her memories? I really enjoyed that. I loved how they kind of ended with Charles and Crystal kissing because that was kind of interesting. Like where they're gonna go with that, like that was weird at the time because it's like she's a ghost or he's a ghost, she's not. So that was interesting. And then also
Yeah,
with Edwin, being or them hinting that
fawning
Edwin
for
is in
him.
love. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of interesting. The night nurse situation, like that was crazy. Like that was like even Edwin was like, "Hey, you went a little too far in this one." So that was like what kicking her into the freaking monster's mouth. Like that was insane. So yeah, so there was a lot that was happening in this. I will say that the washerwoman was really a dope scene. Or those scenes with the washerwoman was dope. I really enjoyed how uh Crystal interacted with her, and her, being told like how she can get her memories back. So that was cool. And so yeah, so this was a really good halfway point in my opinion. So, and
I agree.
I loved how it was funny because you even said at the beginning of the show that this kind of reminded you of like this kind of Scooby Doo where are you kind of thing. And so or the Scooby Doo gang with them adding in
Yes.
Nico and them, and so them watching
Yes.
that was hilarious to me. So yeah. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
gonna
it
do it
was
for
very clever.
yeah, so that's gonna do it for this halfway point. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the last half and then our thoughts on the overall series. We'll be right back, y'all.
Hey pilots, did you know that you can now catch the electrifying sounds of Bullet and Flight Radio anywhere you go? Yes, you heard it right. Tune in to the high flying beats and soaring melodies by downloading the TuneIn app on your mobile device. Just search for Bullet and Flight Radio and hit play. It's that easy. And if you have a smart device like Alexa or Google, just say, "Hey Google," or "Alexa, play Bullet and Flight Radio on TuneIn." Experience the rush of adrenaline wherever you are. Listen to Bullet and Flight Radio on TuneIn using your Alexa or Google devices. Soaring through the skies has never sounded this good. Don't miss out on the ultimate musical journey. Tune in now to Bullet and Flight Radio on TuneIn and let the music take you on an unforgettable ride. Get ready to elevate your listening experience. Brought to you by Bullet and Flight Radio.
Welcome back, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning on in. If you're just tuning in, please do us a favor and make sure you check out Bullet and Flight Radio, the number one progressive Christian and inspirational radio station in the world, and Pyro Media Network. You can go ahead and check out Pyro Media Network by visiting the website at pyromedianetwork.com. Shout out to both of these organizations for keeping us on the air. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and get back into this Dead Boy Detectives review. Now, we just got finished talking about the first half. Now we're about to go into episode 6, which is the case of the oh, I'm sorry, no, episode 5. My apologies. The case of the two dead dragons, which was directed by Amanda Tapping and written by Keely Brisling and Jeremy Kaufman. So, following Crystal's nightmare revolving around David and Charles fighting off the night nurse, Edwin is approached by the ghosts of two boys named Brad and Hunter who were murdered. They have no knowledge of on how they died. Meanwhile, Nico mails a letter to her mom and notices someone sending a secret admirer letter to Jenny. She follows the person to the Port Townsend Library and discovers that it is Maxine. Um, Edwin and Charles learn from Nico that Brad and Hunter attended the same school as her. Esther orders Monty to get the dead boy detective's trust while annoyed that her giant snake is banging on the doors after Becky Aspen was taken away from it. After being taken to the location of Brad and Hunter's deaths, Edwin, Charles, and Crystal are told about their last moments involving a multi-eyed tree. They visit the high school and interview those who know them, including Brad's girlfriend, Marin. A student in the school's dragon mascot costume directs them to a student named Twitchy Richie in the yearbook room. Thanks to some ghostly tricks by Edwin and Charles, Crystal learns from Richie that they secretly treated people terribly, including girls, like they did with Brad's ex girlfriend, Shelby Khan. Meanwhile, Nico informs Jenny about Maxine being her secret admirer. She cuts a deal with Jenny that she will wash the floors for a month if this meeting fails. Maxine arrives at the Tongue and Tail, where she mentions their mutual like of murder movies. At the cemetery, Edwin summons the ghost of Shelby Khan, who died of a suicide. After a brief interruption from Brad and Hunter, who get frightened away, Shelby mentioned that Brad sabotaged her chances of getting into the Olympics and regrets committing suicide. Crystal then gets a text from Twitchy Richie stating that Marin has more information for her. When Crystal goes to speak to Marin, Edwin and Charles enter her room as they see from her window the multi-eye tree that was described. This leads them to stop Crystal from drinking a poisoned drink, which was the same poison drink that killed Brad and Hunter. Marin then confesses that she spiked their drink with nail polish remover, stole their phones, and enlisted Twitchy Richie to move their bodies. Later that night, Marin had turned herself over to the police as Crystal tells Edwin and Charles that the police department is sending some police officers to pick up Twitchy Richie. Jenny's date with Marin takes a turn for the worst when it was discovered that Maxine had stalked Jenny. This drives Maxine mad as she tries to use a meat cleaver on her. When she finds Maxine, uh, Maxine accidentally slips and impales her head on a spike just as Crystal and Nico arrive. Edwin and Charles confront Brad and Hunter about their actions as he declares their unfinished business solved. As the ground shakes, Edwin and Charles hide in Charles' bag as some tentacle creature drags Brad and Hunter underground. Back at the tongue and tail, Jenny, Crystal, and Nico have told the police about what happened to Maxine. After another contact from David, uh, after another contact from David while vowing not to end up like Marin and or Shelby, Crystal tells David that she doesn't know how she will defeat David. Meanwhile, in the park, Edwin meets up with Monty. Even though Monty kisses Edwin, he he is told by Edwin that he started developing feelings for someone else as the Cat King watches through the gray cat and the tabby cat's eyes. This was a lot going on in this episode, but I know that you mentioned earlier that this is one of your favorite episodes. So tell me what your thoughts are about this one.
Well, I loved the storyline between Jenny and Maxine was didn't go quite the way that I thought it was going to go. In all honesty, I thought they were gonna get together and live happily ever after. I had no idea she was a psychopath and then decided that if she was rejected, that she would chop her up into pieces or whatever she was going to do to her. And when she slipped on that knife
Yeah,
and accidentally impaled her entire head on that huge spike,
yeah.
I was gagging. Let me tell you, it was shocking. I had to watch the episode twice because I thought, "Did I see what I just so she's gone? Crazy,
Right.
crazy eyes are gone. Okay, all right."
Yeah, this is a crazy
That was
episode.
insane. Yes, to see the boys being dragged and the whole mystery unravel. I like how they're taking us on journeys every episode, the
Yeah.
different mysteries that they're going to solve. So I assume that that is going to be their formula every week, and I am here for it because the ghosts
Yeah,
and their stories are just as interesting as the main cast.
absolutely, and it doesn't feel like it's gonna be stagnant. So even though we have like an overarching theme, like for example, like them trying to figure out how they're gonna get Edwin out of the town because he's trapped with the Cat King spell, with the bracelet, whatever. They're still doing their job by helping spirits, move on and do those things or whatever. So I love how we're getting like you said, this kind of Scooby Doo type vibe, this kind of detective agency type thing. This Nancy Drew meets Scooby Doo meets like Sandman type thing. So I really enjoy this series. It's like one thing after another. So and it didn't feel like it was overwhelming. It didn't feel like we're having 4,000 storylines and then there's no solution to any of them. We're getting cases that are closed. We're getting things resolved, but we're still meeting the needs of the audience by getting the overall arching theme intact and keeping that intact. So yeah,
Yeah, I hope that they do bring some of the Dead Boy Detective series' main enemies and rivals. Right now, I don't know where they are in the timeline. We know
yeah,
that the Sandman could still be incarcerated
yeah,
during this timeline. We don't know. But what we do know is one of the Dead Boy Detective's main enemies is the Corinthian. And if you all saw Sandman, it was the main antagonist doing Sandman, created by the dream. He had no eyes. And so he is
Yeah.
a main villain of the Dead Boy Detective. So I'm really hoping that we get a chance to see more crossover from Sandman. And because we could easily bring him back and say, "Oh yeah, this was 2 years before he was freed," since we know there was a lot of time traveling during season one of Sandman. So I would definitely like to see that introduction as well. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I would love to see more how they would bridge the Sandman series and Dead Boy Detective. I would love to see the interconnectedness of it all. That would be really dope. But yeah, that was episode 5, y'all. Let's go ahead and get into episode 6, which is the case of the creeping forest. Directed by Glenn Winter and written by Beth Schwartz and Oscar Balderrama. After what happened to Maxine, Crystal finds that she has stored away all of her romance-related decorations. Displeased with David's constant visits to her mind, Crystal and Nico go to um, Tragic Mike's magic shop to find something that can help, while giving them a light of heart and not having luck finding a red sea glass. Tragic Mike finally tells Crystal and Nico his origin that involved a girl being sacrificed to some gods by her father. The gods were not pleased with the sacrifice and transformed the girl into Sedna, goddess of the sea, who gave birth to a bunch of sea creatures, including walruses. Because of Mick's curiosity with humans, Sedna turned him into a human, and he hasn't been hasn't seen Sedna since. Which was the way they did that animation was dope. We'll get into that in a minute. But when Crystal uses the light of heart to make the wish, she loses her gift as a side effect. Esther dispatches Monty to lure the dead boy detectives into a trap and advises him not to get too attached to Edwin. While on the roof, Crystal and Nico work to cover up what happened to Edwin and Charles. Monty shows up claiming that his ghost friend Gladys had gone missing in the tall forest. Edwin, Charles, Crystal, and Monty head to Tall Forest. Meanwhile, in the belly of Angie, the night nurse, remember her, regains her consciousness and meets a man named Kashani, or Kashina, sorry, who had been on different adventures and hasn't found a way out of Angie. At Tall Forest, Crystal covers up her loss of powers by claiming that the scratches on a tree came with a bear came from a bear, while Monty spreads the bioluminescent stuff he got from Esther, claiming that it is toxic to ghosts. Um, Back at the tail and tongue, Jenny sets some boundaries with Nico while stating that she is not mad at her for what happened. At Tall Forest, Edwin, Charles, and Crystal and Monty see a dead elk get consumed by the spore colony as Charles reads from the compendium that they are dealing with a forest elemental that consumes spiritual energy. Back inside Angie, the night nurse struggles to find a way out. After hearing some of the night nurse's back backstory, Kashina, um, persuades Angie to let the night nurse out and gives the night nurse one of his rings to remember him by. After some splitting up, splitting up is done, Charles and Crystal are contacted by David through mirror shards as he calls Crystal weak, as Charles uses his special cricket bait to break the mirror shards. Edwin and Monty are confronted by the Cat King, who exposes the information that Monty is a transformed version of Esther's crow. After Monty flees upon admitting the truth, Edwin turns away the Cat King's advances as part of his thanks, as the Cat King warns Edwin that he will stop playing nice with him. Upon Monty returning or running into her, Esther was not pleased with what the Cat King did and tears his human form apart enough to release the crow that he was. As Charles and Crystal learn from Edwin about Monty, they are confronted by Esther, who unleashes a giant mushroom type forest elemental called Teeth, Face, and Edwin. And Charles, on Edwin and Charles, excuse me. Deciphering the washerwoman's riddle, Crystal looks in and is taken to a location where she meets a woman named Iris and the rest of her ancestors. Even though they are in Crystal's head, them ending up in a descendant's head is common for them as they help her realize that her powers are not completely gone. After learning some new abilities, Crystal regains consciousness and uses her new power to speak to Teethface, telling it that Esther does not control it. Teethface understands and takes Esther with it back to its realm. Jenny tells Nico not to be a pity party shut in and to help people outside of her. As Crystal goes to check in on Nico, Edwin and Charles are then confronted by the night nurse as Charles stated that Edwin was stated that Edwin was taken to hell as part of a botched ritual where Saal later apologized to him for the technicality. The night nurse looks at her book and finds her ring glowing, that revealing the conflicting status of Edwin. This causes the night nurse to have the dead boy detective stay together temporarily to the afterlife until the afterlife in the afterlife's lost and found. Before that can happen, I'm sorry, a spider-like monster composed of doll parts emerges from the wall and drags Edwin to hell, leaving behind Edwin's journal and Cat King's bracelet as Charles and the night nurse are dismayed with what had happened. Whew, what an episode.
Yes, what
What
an
do you
ending.
I know this was crazy, and this was like 2 episodes away from the finale, or 1 episode away. Yeah, 2 episodes away from the finale. But what were your thoughts on this?
I thought it was, they handled a whole lot. You could tell that they were setting up for the finale. They completely exposed Monty, which I really didn't care for Monty. I saw he
Yeah,
was conflicted and all of that, but he was still so insecure and so willing to do evil.
yeah,
So he was not my favorite at all. The Cat
yeah.
King exposing him was hilarious. It was like, you get him, girl.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
he had no backbone, so I didn't
Fight for your
appreciate how
man,
he did.
girl.
Get it,
Right.
girl.
I love the way that Crystal regained her powers. It was very similar to how Storm regained her powers, discovering her
Yeah,
strength from within. So that was really good to see that this was her ancestors were connected to her, and she just didn't realize that. So I really liked the building of her character in that, and she really leveled up for the episode.
yeah. I like that you mentioned that, Dominic, because I also I didn't think about that, but that was a dope comparison. What I liked about with Crystal though is that it was her answer. Like there was always something where you never like nothing can tell you who you are and who you're not, but you, right? Like and one of the cool things about it is like she doesn't know who she lost the memories. So the fact that she is starting to get a glimpse of how dope she is really really cool. But also, what is she? Right? If she's not like a full psychic, what is she? Because she is very different from other psychics, right? And so that's very interesting. So that has yet to be determined in the series yet. So that's going to be
You
really
know who,
interesting to find out.
you know who I thought who she is. Yeah,
Mhm.
well, Chris, she is herself, but she reminds me of is the DC character Madame Xanadu. I believe that is her
Ooh,
name. She's
yes.
Creole, and that's what she reminds me of. I said they could easily make her. I know that there are two totally different characters in the comic books,
Hmm.
but that could be her mom.
Yeah.
There's so many things they could do to connect them.
Yeah. I also want to harken back to the beginning of the show where uh Tragic Mike was talking about how he came to be and about the Sedna story. I love the animation in that. That was such a dope depiction
Yeah,
of everything.
it was
And
a
I
Beautiful
mean,
way of telling that story. Yeah.
yeah, and it kind of reminded me of Sandman and how they have their little animation clips and kind of like montages and stuff like that. So it again bringing in the connectiveness, bringing in expanding the universe. Really dope. Really good episode in my opinion. Um, and yeah, let's the Cat King is obviously, feeling Edwin, but what I didn't like about the Cat King is like when you don't get what you want, you have a tendency to kind of like be this be this ass. It's like, well, I'm gonna be mean to you now that
Yeah, he's
I'm
acting
actually
like a cat.
exactly. So it's like it's weird. So shout out to Edwin for knowing who he is and not giving him the time of day. But let's get into episode 7, The Case of the Very Long Stairway, which was directed by Richard Sprite Jr. and written by Steve Yockey. Esther bursts from the ground and confronts Cat King for ruining her ambush as he mentions that Edwin was taken back to hell, which was crazy. She kills him, and he comes back to life, stating that he cost him that cost him his third life. Esther then leaves to find a way to harness Edwin's ectoplasm. At the tongue and tail, the night nurse can't help Charles get Edwin out of hell, as this is out of her jurisdiction. Crystal doesn't want Charles to turn to the night nurse for help in rescuing Edwin, and plans to head out to confront David. Jenny sees her head off. Uh, Jenny sees her head off and followers her with a clear. What? I'm sorry. This is Jenny sees her head off and follows her with a cleaver. Oh, okay, yeah. After seeing how Charles died and how he first met Edwin, the night nurse agrees to help Charles get into hell. As he descends down the staircase, passing a weeping Maxine, who doesn't know why she is here. Charles goes through the You know what? I didn't even realize that was Maxine.
Oh, really? Yeah, I did. I
I
said, okay, they've got more for her.
I
They've
didn't
got a
even
lot more for her. That's not even going to be our last time seeing her. Watch. You'll
Yeah,
see her
I
again.
didn't even think about that was Maxine, but that was dope. Charles goes through the different levels of hell while using Edwin's notes. Mind you, for you guys for context, Edwin left a journal and kind of mapped out how he got out of hell in the first place. But while dodging the spider-like creature that abducted him, Edwin comes across his schoolmate Simon, who gets paper cuts ripping pages out of a book that regenerates as his eternal punishment for sacrificing Edwin to Saal. He briefly ends up in a mirror reality where he meets Despair of the Endless. After she sends him back, Edwin apologizes to Simon for not interacting with him, much as Simon apologizes for sacrificing him. After Edwin leaves, Simon suddenly stops tearing out book pages as a blue light appears before him. Back at the tongue and tail, Nico is told by the night nurse that she does not know where in the afterlife her father is placed. As Crystal arrives at the last known location of David, Jenny shows up. David appears and possesses Jenny while claiming that he can't take Crystal to hell in order to rescue Edwin. Using her powers, Crystal has David buried near the tree of her mind where the ancestors are. She is advised by Iris that she will have to place him somewhere else when the time comes for it. When Jenny recovers, the man who David possessed also wakes up asking where he is. Esther pays a visit to Tragic Mix magic shop where she intimidates him to give her supplies for a specific project. When Nico mentions how the dead can come back to life, the night nurse corrects her by stating that they would return as zombies. After dodging two misery wraiths, Charles finds Edwin as the spider-like being or demon eats a body of Edwin, um, eats a body eats the body of Edwin as he finds Edwin, who explains that this is written all weird. I'm sorry. Who explains that he gets eaten and regenerated into a new body. Using a special tactic so that the spider like creatures can't hear him, Edwin and Charles flee as they dodge the gluttonous souls, the lustful souls, and motionless limbo souls. After making their way back to the living, Nico has read from the night nurse's book that if a soul that is to be collected has been to another plane, she would have to file Schedule LS 53-9 in order to have them removed a second time. The night nurse agrees and leaves to go file the Schedule LS 53-9. As Jenny recuperates in Nico's room, with Nico reading the magic 8 ball that says, "Outlook not so good." Edwin tells Charles his confession about loving him. Crystal joins them on the roof, stating that she got her memories back. The night nurse has returned to the afterlife's lost and found as she makes her way to a room that says 002. Crystal consumes one of her memory marbles. So this was an action packed. This was a crazy episode that was going on. What were your thoughts on this one?
Well, first of all, I was super happy to see Despair show up from Sandman. When he
Yes.
went through that mirror and that whole scene was very haunting. I thought that the actress who plays Despair is amazing. We saw a little bit of her in season one of Sandman
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
she was talking to her twin brother Desire, I believe. Uh,
Yes.
I think they are twins. I can't remember if I think they are. But I saw the absolute why this actress was cast to play Despair. She really, really did the thing. That
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite scenes of this entire season was seeing her. And because it was such a shocking move for them to make. So here we are already having crossovers again. We had Lilith, we had the mention of death, of the angel of death, and now we have despair as well. So
Yeah.
I really do hope we get a chance to see Corinthian because that would not be much of a stretch.
Right.
Please hear us.
Right.
Shows because he is a definite main villain, one of the main villains of this group of kids. The hell scene was interesting. It was very gross to see him being consumed by that weird looking demon creature. I was happy to see them get in and get out. I was
Mm-hmm.
happy to see that the night nurse had so much compassion.
Yeah.
And I think in this episode, she realized that they are helping her.
Mm-hmm.
They are really making her job and her existence far more easy than she originally thought because they are sending souls to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think she saw that in this episode. So this was a really good episode to me. It
I
was
agree.
a
And
setup definitely for the season finale.
absolutely. And speaking of the season finale, the case of the hungry snake. So after regaining one of her memories, Crystal finds that she had not been so nice to some people and misused her abilities. In addition, Crystal reveals to Edwin and Charles that her full name is Crystal Palace surname von Hovercraft. Meanwhile,
A
Esther
lot.
has right. That's a whole lot, a lot of. Meanwhile, Esther has trapped a random ghost to use as a guinea pig for her new invention and drains his energy. When Crystal calls her parents Maddie and Seth, they had no knowledge that she was gone and are busy overseeing the setup of an art installation at the British Museum. She plans to return to London to make amends. When Jenny awakens in Nico's bed with a half braided hair caused by Nico, she now sees Edwin and Charles following her experience with David. After further proof, Nico shows her the trapped dandelion sprites. As Crystal starts to depart from the tongue and tail, an explosion happens. Crystal goes back in and rescues Jenny and Nico, who state that Esther has abducted Edwin and Charles. Um, Jenny is further surprised when Crystal mentions that Esther is a witch. Taking some meat cleavers, Crystal and Nico go visit the Cat King, who shares Esther's history that goes further back to the earlier days of Port Townsend and how she became a witch to deal with her husband and the girl who was having an affair with, or that he was having an affair with. Consumed by his by this discovery and learning magic, Esther cut a deal with Lilith for eternal life, though this did not include eternal youth, causing Esther to sacrifice young children to her snake. Um, the townspeople kept retaliating against her until the day she found a way to blend in better. As Charles is bound with iron chains, Esther has strapped Edwin to her special device to harvest his experiences in hell in the form of gained power. Crystal and Nico go to Tragic Mix magic shop where he gives them black salt and gives Nico a bear type lucky charm. Then they go to Esther's house where Crystal throws Charles's special bag to him so that he can slay Esther's giant snake. As Crystal confronts Esther, Nico tries to free Edwin. Thanks to a power boost, Esther is unfazed by black salt. After receiving help to get free from Monty, Charles confronts Esther's giant snake in the pit. As Esther tries to shoot a magic shard at Crystal, Nico jumps in the way of the attack. Crystal then uses her powers to enter Esther's mind and contact Lilith about Esther killing little girls and who gets justice for them. After Charles slays the snake, Esther suddenly ages to an old woman. Just then, Lilith arrives and drags Esther away to deal with her. Edwin, Charles, and Crystal then gather around Nico's body as it is shown still holding the lucky charm. After Jenny contacts Nico's mother to arrange for Nico's body to be returned to Japan for a funeral, Edwin officially welcomes Crystal into the Dead Boy Detectives agency as Jenny is invited to join them in London. Before departing, Edwin meets with Cat King again, who offers his condolences for what happened to Nico. Edwin does give Cat King a kiss on the cheek and states that there are 147 cats in Port Townsend. Cat King says that he miscounted as Edwin states that Cat King forgot to count himself as Edwin departs. Back in London, Crystal and Jenny have finished setting up downstairs as Edwin states to Charles that he still has feelings for him. Just then, the night nurse arrives with one of her superiors, known as the principal, who helps make the very big wheel go round. After seeing the Dead Boy Detective's successful cases, the principal allows them to continue their job, helping ghosts with unfinished souls, with the night nurse being reassigned to be their chaperone. After the principal leaves, Edwin formally welcomes the night nurse to the Dead Boy Detectives Agency. Somewhere in the Arctic, the dandelion sprites are in an igloo with someone in full Eskimo attire and holding the same bear-shaped lucky charm that Tragic Mick gifted Nico, implying to viewers that Nico is back from the dead. What are your thoughts on this episode?
It was a really good episode. I didn't think that Nico was really gone. It kind of, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, would not have mattered so much for those that are, true to the source material because she never existed in the first place. But
Right.
I really like the actress and the comedy. She was a comic relief almost every single scene that she was in. So I really appreciated that extra layer and texture to the series. I love seeing again Lilith from Sandman. We saw her in Sandman in the episodes where Morbius went to hell, and with the Lucifer was Lilith right there. So we got a chance to see her again. And so more Sandman references and connections. Clearly the same universe. Niall Gaiman also made it very clear that this is all in the same universe. This is all under Greg Berlanti Productions, yada yada yada. So here we are. It was just such an amazing ending. I love how the night nurse got dragged into it. It was hilarious to see how she was reassigned. And she no. And I'm thinking, she knows she don't really object. She didn't mind working with those boys. She actually had a great time, and working with them changed her for the better, I
Yeah.
saw. Now,
Yeah.
a little side note, when she was in the belly of that fish, I think her and Mr.
Kushina.
Indian guy, yes.
Yeah, Kashina.
Mhm.
Hmm.
He gave her a ring for a reason. I said,
Okay.
"Okay, girl, you better work it down there. You better go on your break." Um,
Yes.
I love the outcome of, was it Esther, the witch?
Hmm.
Love the
Yeah.
outcome of her losing her youth and going being dragged off the hill. It was a perfect ending for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see how they set it up for season two. To see Miko come back, who's not really dead, as we know, and see what they do and where they go. Again, I am hoping that because we saw Lilith again, that we will also have the opportunity to see the Corinthian. He was a
Yeah.
fantastic villain in Sandman season one, so I do think that him and a few other there are Furies that should come over, and some little girl that is real creepy. She's like child. So they have three really creepy villains, and that girl would really be creepy because again, we're talking about if you're familiar with Young Justice, Child, I think that was her name, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a villain that they have who is just like that. So I'm really hoping that we get a chance to see what they do and where they go in season two. So really good ending. Really,
Yeah.
they really wrapped up a lot of things. And even if they don't get brought back, they really tied a bow on the season. So there were
Yeah.
nothing left over. So I really loved it.
Yeah, and I hope that they do bring him back because I think that season two would be really really dope. I really enjoyed this series. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much because I kind of was like, oh, okay, whatever, Dead Boy Detectives, I'm not really like I wasn't really into the comics for them, but this really made me want to kind of deep dive into the comics and the overall kind of thing with them. So I'm really interested. I like how they did it. I thought it wasn't too overly campy and it wasn't too overly, dark. It was just right. They had a really good balance. Just like in my opinion, how Sandman was. So I enjoyed it. Some of my highlights
Yeah.
for this um some of my favorite parts of this series was just kind of the dynamic between Edwin and Charles. Even when Edwin expressed and confessed his love for Charles, even though it didn't seem like Charles had the same level of feelings that he did, he let him know that you're still one of the most important people to me. And it kind of like harkened to the fact that like you can still have a friendship, like it went deeper than just, oh, let's just make out and have sex, right? It was a
Right.
true love type situation, unconditional love that Edwin needed to feel. And I thought that Charles did a brilliant job of giving that to him without having to um
Shame him, make him feel bad.
exactly,
And,
exactly. So it was just a really, I love that part of everything. I also love that Crystal got to see who she was, and maybe this was her losing her memories and starting anew, that she was able to merge who she was, and learn about who she was, so she can do better. She chose to do better. She chose to be better.
yeah,
And so that was, showed that you don't have to be the sum of your past. You can choose to be better than who you were yesterday, right? And so that was a dope takeaway from that. And I agree. I don't think Nico is done, right? And so it was obvious that Nico wasn't done. So we'll see. And I'm interested to see how Jenny is going to contribute to the Dead Boy Detective Agency. It's now like a full standing agency now. They're all like,
yeah. Because it's like, girl, you're a butcher. What are you gonna do? Just cook for everybody? I
right.
mean, we can live with that,
I
but the
mean,
boys don't eat. So
right. So, what's gonna happen here. So I'm interested to see how she's gonna contribute and what she's gonna do. Because Nico had her thing. Obviously, Crystal is a psychic. So, what are you bringing to the table, Jenny? We'll see. So yeah,
and the night nurse is an entity that doesn't age, so we know what she's gonna bring to the team. So
exactly.
yeah, it's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
interesting. Receptionist?
Right.
No.
No, no. Office manager, possibly. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, we'll see how this all goes, and I'm hoping that they do a season two. I don't think they. I don't know if they got a green light for season two. I can't remember if we looked that up or not. But yeah, we'll see how it all goes. Well, this I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the Dead Boy Detectives. If you guys have not had a chance to watch it, go ahead and check it out on Netflix. Yeah, this was a good series, I have to say. Chef's kiss to you guys, DC Studios. Chef's kiss. You got anything else before we go, Dominic?
Yes, I just wanted to say really quick, we did look it up, and I did just check just to make sure, and Netflix has not confirmed a
Okay.
season 2 yet.
Yeah, at the time
So
of
we
this
do
recording.
know that. Correct.
Hmm.
At the time of this recording, Netflix has not confirmed the season 2. However, we do know that Dead Boy Detective Agency is doing fairly well on Netflix. They
Hmm.
were in the top 10, I believe, for the past 2 weeks, and they're still very popular on Netflix. So they're doing good. So I assume that maybe 2 or 3 months after they come out and Netflix sees the numbers, we'll hear either yay or nay.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you. Don't forget to check out Balloon and Flight Radio and Pyro Media Network. And until then, stay blessed, stay stress free, and stay unusual.
That's right. Stay unusual.
Bye, you guys.